Recording in progress.
I think Powell's joining us, but we're having a little bit of IT issues. We won't be able to see him.
Old things.
I was wondering if the signing through was actually
I'm waiting until they give me the all clear to start. I'm going to call the meeting to order first, and then we'll do the introductions. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
He wants to get.
Turn my phone off. Trigger's off now. Phone's off. Phone up. Always off. Living dream.
Thank you. We are ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and I will call this meeting of the Caltech Regional District Committee to order for August the 28th, 2024. Welcome all of you to beautiful Texada Island, Diane, and we're very pleased that you have to host the Board on the Road annual traveling roadshow here in our area D. So before we begin the proceedings on the agenda, I'd like to go around the table and introduce ourselves so that you know who we are, and we will hopefully get to know who you are at some point. So, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Michelle Jones, Corporate Officer for the Regional District.
Cindy Elliott, Municipal Director from the City of Colorado.
Jason Lennox, I'm Director from Area A, that's north of Plowman and Love Texas.
And I'm Mark Gisborne, Director of Electoral Area B, which is directly east of the municipality, also kind of south of town, also Paradise Valley.
I'm Andrew Fall. I'm from Area E, Electoral Area E, Lasqueti Island.
I'm George Judd. What's my name?
Yeah. You have doubt?
Better than most.
And Clay Brandis from Electoral Area.
Thank you so much, and I acknowledge that the meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of Flower Nation. Directors, you have the agenda in front of you, including the late item of correspondence. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Director Fall, Director Brander, any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor, any opposed, carried. Adoption of the minutes of July 24th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, a motion to adopt the minutes, Director Bridgor. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor, any opposed, carried. Thank you. We have one registered delegation, and so I would welcome Maddie Yule from the Powell River Educational Services Society, if I got that right, correct? So please join us.
Okay.
Maddie.
Hi, I'm Madison Yule from Powell River Educational Services Society.
Maddie, if you just sit in front of the delegate computer, then you will appear on the live stream.
This will be one.
You got 10 minutes, so we go in.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, hello everyone. As I just introduced everyone behind me, I'm Madison Yule. It's wonderful to be here on Texada, and I'd like to acknowledge the Mohammed people whose traditional territory we are meeting on today. So thank you, and I'm here representing Powell River Educational Services Society, or PRESS, as we like to call ourselves for short. And I'm here today to request a QRD appoint a board member to participate in a community consultation on services for children with a disability. So PRESS has been asked to facilitate a community consultation focused on service areas for local children with a disability between June and November of this year, 2024. The initiative is led by Inclusion BC with support from various provincial and local organizations. The intent of the consultation is to help ensure strong networks of services and supports for local children and youth with a disability. The focus areas we have include education, programs and supports from the K-12 systems, healthcare, which is access to early diagnosis care and medical advices and devices, and community-based service and supports, including inclusion and accessibility of recreational programs within the QRD. The consultation has two distinct components. We have family conversations and agency or organizational oversight and reflection. So the committee works collaboratively to identify service gaps, challenges, and opportunities for improvement within our region, including here on Texada. The ultimate goal is to create a responsive, connected network that better meets the needs of children with a disability and their families. So PRESS approached the QRD's Accessibility Committee seeking participation in the consultation. However, the AC staff representative stated that the participation is outside of the AC terms of reference, advised that PRESS approach the QRD board directly, which is why I'm here today. And I thought it was a good idea to show up in person just to give you a sense of who we are and what we're doing. PRESS believes that the QRD board has an essential role and should have a voice in this process, which I'd like to formally request that a member of the QRD board participate in this consultation. In the hopes that a QRD board member joins, you'll be in the community-based services component of the PRESS facilitated consultation. And the role will require a commitment of 2 to 4 hours in October of this year, 2024, which we are very pleased isn't like weeks upon weeks. We just need to put a short amount of time, but it would be a great opportunity. I'd like to just thank you for your time and consideration, and I would be more than happy to help answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jen, for your presentation.
No
I'm sure Director will have questions. So we'll open the door to that. Director Elliott, and Director Powell and Director Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. So I noticed you had under E, the consultation has two distinct components, family conversations and then an agency or organizational oversight and reflection. Is the QRD representative part of that agency organizational oversight and reflection in the way that you have this designed?
Yeah, so it would be for the working committee, not the family component, because we actually did have a meeting for the educational section of our consultation where we met with like QP district members, and then later on after that meeting we met with parents who wanted to discuss topics within the K-12 services. So if you guys were to jump on board, you would be in the community aspect of the working committee. But then again, you're more than welcome to sit in on parent discussions we may have, and we would do a written report that we would send to you, and anything you wanted revised or redacted would.
Chair Powell? Yeah. So, if there's a group that's, doing oversight and reflection, does that mean you haven't actually started consultation yet and the group would have oversight around process and this, planning? Or is it already all planned, you've started it, and the oversight kind of comes in at the end? So I'm trying to just.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Thank you. So the only component we've done is our educational one. Community and health have been a little more challenging getting people on board. So we have a outline of what we would like to do, but it more depends on the people involved. So with you coming in, you could say, okay, this meeting, you know, I know these parents that I believe would want to be a part of this, but they're more flexible in mid-September as opposed to October. Then we would look at that and take it into consideration and could move things around.
So if you are a parent with children with disabilities.
Yes.
Would that make it sort of a good thing for representation, or would you prefer someone who's not a parent? Like, do you want those ideas separated?
That's also a good question, because we have had a couple people within our education services.
Why do you have?
Yes.
That's why I'm so interested.
No, on both the working side and the family discussions. Now you can choose, but if you were to come into the family consultation discussion, then we would ask that you would kind of separate yourself from the working committee aspect, you know, coming at it from that parent directive instead of, oh, well, I know XYZ is behind the scenes, just so other parents and families could also kind of learn as we go, because not everyone knows what's going on within the community. So really, you being a parent and on this board, you could choose.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Director Elliott. Director Paul, you're next, and Director Gifhorn, I'll myself.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Your presentation was very nice and concise, and I really appreciated the request, because it's nice to have something that's very clear. We know what's being asked, and the information was laid out, and the request was clear, so we don't have to think too much about what exactly we're being asked. That's great. So the only question I have is, you know, really the request is clear, and the amount of time suggested is modest, so 2 to 4 hours. I think that's
yes.
Doesn't sound like a big deal. Would there be a likelihood of follow-up though? So I mean, that sounds almost on the too low side. Like, you'd have this consultation. Would there be, if we appointed someone, would there be a likelihood that there would be a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks for asking.
And so on to kind of, you know, after the consultation is done, to kind of review what was found.
Well, for the education section, we did our follow-up and reviews just via email, because it's quite a lot of paperwork, I might say, on our end. So just kind of reviewing everything and going over, but we are open to meeting in person. I know our education working committee would like to meet again, just to go over things and kind of clarify next steps. But really the follow-up is just communicating online and going over the revised documents, keeping a record of what's been changed. Oh, and might I add, within our family consultations, we do keep in names, but for people's privacies, but when it's going public, we redact any names, any children's names, ages, just for privacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paul. Director Gifhorn.
No, thank you. Sorry. My first question is, I see you're requesting a member of our board to come and sit on the committee, which I like. But are you also going to be making a similar request to the municipality of Powell River as well?
Yeah, so I actually completely forgot to print this out, but I have a little diagram of service areas we'd like the community-based service committee to including you guys, family and youth division, community living inclusion, and the Ministry of Children and Families. So we're hoping to reach out, but like I said, it's been a little more difficult with people's busy schedules, and they kind of put this on a back burner, which is pretty disheartening. But we're in the hopes that we can kind of change that around, and we're always open if people have suggestions saying, oh, this division would actually be great for you guys. Like I said earlier, we have an outline, but the set plan would really just like to improve everything for youth and children and their families.
Okay, and the reason for the question is if there's a similar request to the municipality, however, then they might choose to appoint a counselor. We have 2 municipal directors here at our table, or the other alternative is we could, if it's okay with you, appoint 2 directors, one from electoral area, one from a municipality. If that is up to the board.
Sure, here's where I have to ask you this. Hang on to that thought for a second. We reached our 10 minutes. Is everybody okay to continue on? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's essentially the question, is would you be okay with 2 directors, one from the electoral area, one from the municipality, and that way?
My personal take, I think that would be fantastic. I would have to reach out to my supervisor and make sure everything was okay on that end, but I couldn't see why not. I mean, the more the merrier, and really we're trying to have this all outlined, and the more people from government and anything within our region to have a say would be fantastic. So I will reach out to her and then hopefully get back to you on that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, 2 quick questions.
Yes.
Is there a member of the school board contemplated to participate in this? Because they're the ones that could translate the need versus the money available and stuff like that. So my question is, do you have a trustee included on your?
Yes, I don't have these specific names with me right now, because that is a good question that I should have thought of before coming here today. But yes, we had district board members, trustees, QP, and parent rep that was with us. So kind of like Miss Elliott was saying, we had a few people that dipped into both the family and the working committee. So I'm not sure if I should name those people specifically if they want to stay on just the parent side.
So that's good, thank you. And my second question is, what's the relationship between what you're doing at press and the anchor table? We recently heard a presentation from, was it the anchor table from Boundary Quebec? And I'm wondering if you are in line, if you're, communicating with them, because they're also talking about services for children and facilities.
This is the first I'm hearing of the anchor table. I'm not familiar with it, so that's something I would like to get more information on. It sounds like we have our stars aligned, so maybe if I could get more information after that would be great, but no, I haven't spoken to them.
Okay, well, the group is called Boundary Protect, so you might want to check them out. Director Brandon, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. I see on your report that it'll be 2 to 4 hours in October. I was just curious, what kind of time frame would you like to have the committee established by? Meaning, if we took this question away and decided on it, when would you need to get back?
Well, I read in the report that there would be a vote by next week, September, when you have your other meeting. But I would hope within 2 weeks would be our goal. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Anyone who hasn't asked a question yet? Any further questions from the new directors? All right, seeing no hands, Maddie, I want to thank you very much for your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate being here today.
Are there any motions?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should have a motion or just have a quick round of conversation.
What is the consensus of the group? Would you rather have a brief round of conversation before entertaining a motion? I'm not seeing a lot of nods. Okay with that? All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful proposal. I think we have enough interest around this table to potentially appoint 2 members of our board. I would be very happy to put my name forward because being a possible district and some of the overlap with healthcare, and it also makes me think of June 6th when Dr. Penny Balaam had the roundtable of the local government liaison group. One of the questions came up was, how are the referrals coming from Vancouver Coastal Health to the school district? And there seemed to be a little bit of it didn't seem to be going all that efficiently. So it is something that has come up, but also I think we should potentially have someone from the electoral areas and someone from the municipality. So I'd be happy to two directors. That's my thoughts.
We're still in a conversation phase. Director Elliott, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm kind of in support of us having a representative. I don't know if they're gonna be asking the city directly for a representative or not. I could ask that question. But the answer to that question might matter as far as the point from Director Gisborne. So I am forward having a motion to move it for decision at our next meeting.
All right, so I'll throw my 2 cents for it in. I think it would make sense. We have certainly 2 billing directors. On the other hand, there may be other people at the city who want an opportunity to participate. And it's really isn't our purview to appoint, on behalf of the city. That's kind of up to them. So those are my thoughts. Director W.
Coincidentally, I think that's a great idea. I think, getting parents with children with disabilities together with all the organizations we can, and the more people communicate, the more you can try to do something about it. So I think it's a really good idea. I think we should appoint at least one director to it. It's an interesting idea, having a municipal director and an electoral area director. But whoever we choose from this group would be a representative of that regional district. This body doesn't have any ability to appoint a representative of the city of Powell. So as long as we keep the fact in mind that if we're appointing 2 representatives, it's 2 representatives of that regional district, and whatever the city chooses to do, appointing representatives is a totally separate question. And I do encourage you to come to the city and tell, if nothing else, just tell the city exactly what's going on. So I'll hear it. But I think, I think what's being asked for really could be done by one director, but I'm interested to hear what the other director does.
Thank you, Director Powell. And I have to explain the noise in the background. The preschool is in session right now. So, so I have on the speakers with Director Brander, Lennox, and Paul.
Okay, thanks, Chair. We're getting more requests like this these days, and I'm certainly not opposed to the concept, but I was just going to float the idea we get a brief staff report about it. And I guess the question goes to corporate officer, do we have enough time to even do something like that? It may not be possible this year.
Thank you, Chair. So our agenda for next week is being developed tomorrow.
Right.
So it could potentially be included as a link for them. Although we are on a very short time frame with just 3 days.
That's right.
Thank you, Director. Lennox and then Paul.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for your presentation. I think it's this is action. You're trying to take action. We've heard over my 2 years as a director many times the struggles that families are having. And, I think you've identified some gaps, and you're just at the beginning of the process. So I think it's, you made the point that you also need some endorsement from your leadership about us kind of jumping on the bandwagon. I think your request is for 1 director, and I think it's appropriate for us to select a director now with the information we have at hand, small commitment. I don't think we need to burden our staff with a report. We're at the infancy, and I think the director that is reporting back to us can report back, and if we need to step up our game and add more resources or horsepower or need more information, we can also, thanks.
Thank you, Director Maddie.
Thank you, Chair. I think we don't need to make things too complicated. Director Lennox, I agree completely. We can only, as a committee, we can make a recommendation today. So we're not deciding anything. We're recommending to the board. We could keep our recommendation if we have, and I'm in favor of at least 1, be at least 1. If we made a recommendation without a name, we could just say, for example, a motion that was the committee recommend that the board appoint 1 or 2 directors for this. And I agree with Director Doubt. We can't say we're one of those to the city. We're directors, and that's how we do it. But if we said 1 or 2, then by the time it comes forward to us, then maybe we'll know whether or not, well, there's 2 pieces that I think that helps. One is whether or not your organization, Press, has been able to reach out at the energy and time to the city, because if the municipality is appointing 1, then I think we should just have 1. But also, I heard, as you'll say, that, the request was for 1, and it isn't really, I think, right for us to say two when the request is for one. So I think I would rather hear back from press to say, yeah, two would be appropriate, and would it be three if the city? So there's a few pieces, but if we made a recommendation and we said one or two, otherwise and not name someone, then it moves it forward and we can decide a person, a director at that time, and come forward that we have with a blank name there and we fill it in. So that's what I would suggest would be a way to help us move forward without getting down in the weeds.
Thank you, Director Paul. So is there any further discussion? So I'm entertaining a motion if someone would like to put one on the table.
I would like to second Director Paul's suggested motion.
Okay, can you?
Okay, so I guess the
break
motion,
that
and
into-
I'll rely on the corporate officer to help me, that the committee recommend that the board appoint one or two directors for the community-based component services of the press facilitated consultation on local services to children with disabilities.
Thank you. And your second.
Yeah.
All right. So, corporate officer?
Oh, sorry, thank you. Shelley, if you wouldn't mind sharing that again. Yeah, we have the motion. We would normally share it with everyone, but we're having a little technical obstacle.
The gallery can see it on the laptop.
Okay, so can everyone see the motion? I personally
I
can't.
don't, not all log into the meeting.
If I may, Chair, I can read that out. That the committee of the whole recommend to the board, or that the board appoint one or two Quebec Regional District Directors to the community-based services consultation on local services to children with disabilities as requested by the Powell Education Services.
Thank you. And then that would mean that it would be up to the board to make a decision on whether it would be one or two and who that would be. So discussion.
Just very briefly, so I assume, so our meetings next, that through the chairs, that when this would come to the board?
Next week.
Yeah, next week. So basically it'll come before the board, and then the board would entertain that and put a name there, and hopefully there's a little bit more information through how exactly to clarify.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion, Director Paul.
Very quick. I'd like to thank Director Paul. The motion actually is absolutely perfect. It's one of the challenges that something to run into is about green bananas, and the motion is open enough that in the next week we can then have it kind of gestated it and written, and then we can cross that bridge next week. So I'd like to thank everyone for getting us there.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion. Seeing no hands, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. So we are now moving on. There is no unfinished business. We have 3 items of correspondence. Is there any business arising from the correspondence? Director Paul.
Could I pull number 6.1? I have a
6.1
for a question for our
Yeah.
manager of emergency services.
Thank you. 6.1 will now become 7.1. Anything else? Seeing no one, we will now move to business arising. And 7.1, Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So the correspondence from the Office of the Fire Commissioner relates to changes to the Fire Services Act, and we talked about that before. We wrote to them and with concerns, and other regional districts did too, because it's you could think of it as a bit of a downloading, or it seemed like it was going to be, and it appears like the ministry listened to regional districts, because there's a sort of exceptions. The downloading goes on municipalities, and that's going to be an issue for municipalities to worry about. But the costs and the inspections and so on seem to be covered by the Office of the Fire Commissioner. So through the chair, if I might ask our manager of emergency services if he's available, what are the implications for this change to our services, and that's one part. And the second part is, could any changes be linked with our Fire Smart assessments? Because could the Fire Smart assessment crew take on any of the kind of observational or advice for reducing fire risk related to the new Fire Services Act?
Thank you, Director Paul.
Corporate Officer, thank you. Ryan House, Manager of Emergency Services, is not available today. We can make a note of that.
Okay.
I actually had similar questions to Director Paul regarding the cost implications to us and inspections and what the requirements are. So I'm definitely with that.
I'm not sure if I have an answer, but at the electoral area directors forum in Richmond, I believe at the end of January, this item came up. For those that don't know, one of the main concerns was that it appeared that regional districts were being tasked with the inspection for fire safety of public buildings. The concern that we had in the past was, there's public buildings which are lodges way up in inlets and they're not part of any fire service, and there was major concern to the liability and the downloading. And I believe it was Al Richmond and the provincial representative clarified to us that our role will essentially be if someone calls us about concerns of the fire safety of a public building, that we would simply forward the call and complaint to the office of the fire commissioner, and that would essentially be the extent of our involvement. And I recall and asked the question, does that make us essentially front counter BC on this issue that we're not taking on that liability? But it is a good question, and I would like some confirmation whether that is still the case, because it's not an issue until it is.
And the letter kind of makes more of an issue. Director,
I was wondering if it's appropriate that we make a motion to have staff write us a bit of a report on the implications for us in implementing.
are you making that a motion?
Sure.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Director Paul, thank you. Discussion on the motion. Director Zach.
Yeah, I think it's well known that the Fire Safety Act has been delayed in its implementation for several years, I believe. And the letter is indicating basically we're pushing ahead and we're going to, it is now in effect. And so they acknowledge the feedback loops that are in place, but I think we have some questions about now that it is official, what are the actual final implications? So I support the motion.
Okay. Further discussion.
Just briefly, and you follow the link that's in the letter and it takes you to a government website. There's actually there's a whole bunch of documents, but there's an FAQ, a Fire Safety Act QA, and it's about 20 pages long. And if you haven't looked at it, it's really useful because it has these kinds of questions. And I think it does have some answers to my questions, but not specifically, because it doesn't say, what exactly are we going to be doing? It's complaint based, no cost. Office of the Fire Commissioner provides resources, but still that doesn't mean there's no implications. Like what happens, what exactly happens when someone does something, there's a complaint or, so I think it's really, I think the motion's useful because for us to know if there are any changes, or are we just in reaction? Are we reactive, as it was saying? Are we just a reactive entity? That's okay too, but I think it would be useful for us to know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion. Right, you get one.
Yeah, at first I'm not entirely sure if the staff report is needed because this item did come up back in January. However, with the announcement in the end of January to February, which has some changes to what we discussed in January, I actually have been swayed to now actually support this motion for staff.
Thank you so much. Round two, I'm not seeing any hands, so we will prepare to vote. All in favor of the recommendation. Thank you. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. So we are now on to reports, and we have item 8.1, which is our second quarter strategic plan progress report. There is a motion on the table, but I think I would entertain questions about the report, questions factual information first, and then we will have a motion. Are there any factual questions? Okay, seeing no hands, I actually have one question, and I believe it would be to Mr. Devereaux, who's in the audience, our manager of operational services. And it's regarding the building assessment being done at this building, the old school building, and the community hall. What's the status of those inspections? And would they be coming to the rec commission at its meeting in September?
Yes, Chair. So the reports came in last week. So I have them, just reviewing them now, and I will try to distribute them to the Texas Island Recreation Commission before the September 12th meeting, so they will have time to review it for the meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any further questions regarding items?
I thought one question, just because we're in Yule Bay and it's sort of relevant. So in here, there's we've submitted, and this through the chair, probably for Mr. Devereaux, for the Tinches, we submitted an application to the ALC, and it shows it as, there's some information in here. Is there any update on that, or are we in just a waiting pattern on that from the ALC?
Good question. In fact, I posed that with Ms. Rodden.
Oh, maybe it's Ms. Rodden, yes.
Ms. Rodden on at the meeting.
Thank you, Chair, Ms. Robin is here.
All right, perhaps we could pose that question to Laura Rodden, who's our manager of planning services. Ms. Rodden, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. My camera is not set up today, but I am here and happy to answer that question. We are waiting for correspondence from the Agricultural Land Commission. I have reached out a couple of times to find out whether the executive committee has met on the application. They did meet in July. However, they said they cannot say anything until the written decision has been sent to the regional district. So as soon as that arrives, I'll be able to say one way or the other. So it'll either be denied, it will be accepted in principle, asking for some additional information, or it may be approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's certainly an issue that's on the heart of many. Chair's edge until a result of that process is known. Are there any other questions regarding the strategic plan for this? Okay, you have a question?
It's a question, but also an alternative motion, and I'm not sure if my email worked because I sent an alternative motion to our corporate officer, Michelle Jones, and I'm wondering if she. Oh, okay. My computer's been weird now.
Okay, so we can move forward with that and entertain motion. There is one in our agenda, but are you making an alternative motion at this point?
Yes. When reviewing the second quarter 2024 strategic plan progress report, there's a number of items in there related to the Quebec Regional Hospital District, which we have essentially the same members of the board, with the exception of one nation at this table. So thinking about it, I created a motion, I sent it, but we're in a different location. And the motion is that the committee recommends that the board direct staff for all future strategic plan progress reports to separate all strategic plan action items related to the Quebec Regional Hospital District into a separate strategic plan progress report, and that the separate report be forwarded to the Quebec Regional Hospital District Committee level.
Perhaps before, perhaps you should refer that motion to staff to see if it's able to be, like to see if those two things.
Sure. And would you rather have that reviewed to refer to staff before being seconded?
No, I think that the motion should be to refer that motion to staff to analyze the ability to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then,
So if it gets seconded, then someone can make a referral.
Director Lennox is seconded. So you're asking for
And now I'll move referral of the motion to staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is everybody clear?
I'll second the referral motion.
Pardon?
I'll second the referral motion.
Okay, yeah, so there's a motion that was seconded by Director Lennox, then the referral motion made by Director Gisborne and seconded by Director Paul. Okay, so the referral motion is on the table. Director Brander?
Thanks, Chair. I just want to clarify that this is really quite a separate issue and that we still have to make a decision based on the progress after this.
That would be my understanding as well. I think further on the motion to refer on the table.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. There's a number of items in our strategic plan progress report related to motions that were passed at the regional hospital district. And as everyone around our table knows, the public might not know, the regional hospital district also includes London Nation and is technically a separate government entity. And I think out of respect for the regional hospital district board, these motions and the progress should be looked at the regional hospital district so that the whole hospital district board can comment and feedback and go like, yes, this is what we like. But having it referred to staff, I think is a good move, and that way they can let us know, can these things be separated, and how we can move forward. So
thank you. Further discussion on the motion, Director Elliott?
I'm generally in favor of the hospital board directly having information and addressing information about the hospital board. So I like that the motion is coming forward and in favor of the referral.
All right, seeing you put your hands, we will vote on the referral. On all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. Director Blanford.
I'd like to move the recommendation by one.
Thank you. Second by Director Paul. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. Okay, we're on to item 8.2, which is the single fire department membership policy. And I would just give the information to people in the audience. This is for regional district fire departments. Fire departments here on Texas are not regional. They're improved. So we're talking about the regional district fire. So directors, you have the recommendation before you. Director Brent, you're moving.
Recommendation.
Okay, seconded by. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Director Dowd, thank you. Discussions. Director Elliott, Director Brander, who moved it, and then Director Elliott, then Director Lennox.
Thank you. I really appreciate the report, all the information in the report. It makes a lot of sense to me that you want to be able to track the amount of experience, I guess, that each individual firefighter has, especially when you come into traumatic situations. And there's one line near the end of it that really, near the end of the discussion portion of the report that really stood out to me was, should have scrolled down here.
What page?
No, well, there's two things. One, that this won't affect current volunteers. So if there are current volunteers that are members of more than one volunteer fire department, they can maintain that. The other aspect of it that stood out to me is that it says, the result being that electoral area service taxpayers picking up the bill for a volunteer firefighter who may have contracted an injury in another jurisdiction. So if a firefighter has, say, stress-related issues, how do you assess where those came from? Because the service areas, whether it be in A, B, or C, well, B and C are together, but or the city or common, how do you assess who pays for the recovery, the training, the WCD claim that may come from something like that? If it's all associated with a single fire department, then it's very clear as to who picks up the tab for that. So that's a more practical aspect of it, but I also think that the tracking of how many accidents, for instance, the first responders respond to is a good deal as well.
Thank you, Director Brandon. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I'm generally not in favor of the proposed policy, and I'm going to explain why. I think that the report does discern between what makes things more administratively easy to keep track of and monitor, but what it does do is create barriers for volunteer fire departments to get the people they need and the mobility around the region for folks who may be looking for opportunities to train, get their skills up, maintain their skills, all of these other things if they happen to be in different service areas. One of the biggest problems we have with fire departments, whether they be career, volunteer, or any other type, is filling enough people. So anything that we do that creates a barrier to getting well-trained people in those spaces is, even if it makes administrative sense, does not make sense for fighting fires or maintaining fire departments. And so I haven't seen anything in here that links being part of more than one fire department to the issue at hand. What it is the job itself is a high-risk job for PTSD. It doesn't increase the risk when you're in one or the other. The idea that you can't decide who might pay the cost for this person who's provided service to a number of communities is, quite frankly, I'm afraid not something I buy into. It's easy to determine how much time is spent at each one and apply a proper number to that, and whether you want to or you think that's hard or not, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is it's a high-risk job and we need to take care of our people. We need to have ways to take care of those people that apply to everybody, sharing those resources and sharing the people who are trained and the avenues to that training makes more sense to me. And so I just think this policy is not sold to Neil.
Thank you, Director Leonard.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and I thank Director Elliott for comments. You know, I've lived this, so I've been a member on multiple fire departments in the region and the municipality over the years. I read the report. First of all, I got to be honest, we did not ask for this report or the recommendations in it. I am a full supporter of what this board has done, both in my tenure and in the past, to improve on mental health awareness, training, support. We've done some good work and we're getting better. And I appreciate our staff and all the things they've been doing. But quite frankly, we didn't ask for this. So I'm surprised that it's come before us. So to the matter of the recommendation, I'm obviously against it. Reading the report, fluctuations in a healthy state into a reacting state are normal. We all do that. I do that at my other job. I do that throughout my personal life and with the people I love and care with. That is being human. So you're not always going to be in a healthy state. You're going to be moving back and forth. And I respect what the studies have shown. But these come out of the US with career fire departments. And I'm really not convinced that that applies to the folks that I have in my region. Suicidal ideations were identified. Yeah, firefighters, emergency responders, I was a paramedic for many years. You have some thoughts and you deal with people that have had those thoughts. Again, that's part of the job, as Director Elliott said, try to be brief here. It's not apples to apples. Work safe claims, appreciate that. In my other job, I deal with this every day. You work with the claims manager to assign the appropriate coverage for what the incident that occurred that may have been a triggering event or the past event. So you work with the claims manager and you support your people if and when they hit that wall. There's already a presumption of injury in these professions so that when they make a claim, they don't have to go through a rigmarole of proving it. And we hope we never have to. Our wellness programs are the key. Our leadership is the key. Our chiefs and captains are key to assessing their people, knowing their people, and intervening at the appropriate times. And we do the best we can. Mental health claims in all categories, in all professions, especially these ones, are skyrocketing. In our mills, they're skyrocketing. So again, we have work to do with mental health and the claims that are associated. Emergency services covering our region are important to everybody. The electoral areas picking up the bill for other jurisdictions is really a fallacy. These people live some of my people are living in town half the year, they're on Savory half the year. I'm not going to ask them to not respond. That's crazy. And if and when the claim is entered, all the parties will work together to determine appropriate relief. And then relief of costs. So employers are relieved of costs after a certain period in BC. And it's usually 10 weeks. And what that means is the entire province pays for those mental health claims, if that is what the claim is. So all fire departments in the province are paying for these claims. So it's incumbent upon us to work together. Again, CAFET means working together. That's what we need to do to support our firefighters, no matter what area they're in. We're all paying for the claims. I'm almost done. In my experience, I'll be honest, especially when I first started, I wanted to do more calls. Like, please understand, I had more anxiety and, worry because I didn't know what I was doing. So when I did more calls, I became stronger. I became better at what I did. And then I could help my coworkers and I could intervene when I saw they were struggling. So you see where I'm going? It's not the same for everybody. I mentioned this Northside and Flamin, so I'm speaking about my area. I want that relationship to improve. I don't want there to be like a wall where, oh, you can't go across that line. I think those people have in the past and want to continue to work together. And we don't have a long list of volunteers. We need to work together and support those people. So in the end, I don't believe this action is necessary for my area or the region.
Thank you, Director Lennox. And before we get to this board, Melanie Taylor, our health and safety officer, has a few comments. So Ms. Taylor.
Thank
Thank you, Chair. I'm here with Northside Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief Jim Brown. So either of us could answer any questions that you may have. I did want to just point out a couple of things. Last year, and this is a local example, but last year we worked with the VK Wellness Initiative as part of our ongoing PATH program with our fire departments. And they surveyed the 4 QRD fire departments, and they revealed that a significant number of our own fire department members are spending a majority of their time in this reacting or ill or injured state on the mental health continuum. The clinical counselor who was leading the survey noted to us that it is important for us to recognize that spending more than half the time in a reacting state significantly increases the risk of mental health injury. So I just wanted to point out that this is local data that we're talking about here, right in our own areas. And then the second thing I wanted to mention was just but the concern is the cumulative effects. When you belong to more than one fire department, you are attending more incidents and like emergency incidents, meaning that you're exposed to more potentially traumatic incidents, which leads to cumulative trauma. And cumulative trauma, it puts you at very high risk for a mental health injury or illness. And those, because of the presumptive clause in the Workers' Compensation Act, those are compensable workplace injuries that we are taking on a much higher risk for that. So I just wanted to point out those items.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor, and certainly is our understanding. Director Githorn, you were next on the speaker.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Melanie. I believe all that was covered in the staff report. I believe Director Lennox pointed out that the board didn't ask for this. That's where I'm having a real issue. The Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department budget in 2014 was $298,000, and this year it's $923,000. I'm finding it increasingly difficult to justify all these costs. As we see around this table, and as we did today, before we start taking action, we ask for a staff report. The staff report comes back with items, information, and recommendations. We never asked for this staff report, but what happened was the staff engaged with outside fire departments regarding this proposed policy, engaged with legal counsel to get a legal opinion regarding this policy, engaged with other regional districts regarding this policy, wrote a report regarding the policy, and then wrote the policy, and then we have another.
I think I need to step in here and just say we gotta be careful. We don't want to be attacking staff.
I'm not attacking staff. This is in the report.
I believe I have this floor right now.
No, I have the floor. If you're saying a point of order, what is the point of order in Chairman Rule 1?
Point of order, Director Brander.
I think we have to be careful. We don't want to be attacking the staff. That's all I mean. We have a code of conduct we abide by.
Thank you, and that's duly noted. Go ahead, Director.
Well, you make the decision.
Are you asking the committee to make a decision?
No, it is the chair. When a point of order is called, the chair makes a decision.
Okay, my decision is that we do respect their code of conduct policy and that you can continue on as long as you keep that in mind with your comments.
Absolutely. So this is all covered in the report. That these are the actions that have been taken by our organization. Our board, as has been mentioned, did not ask for this. I want to know how much
Hi, everyone. So we believe we've lost the feed to the Texada Senior Center, so we're just working on getting it back.
Okay, thanks.
Well, so I'll get you part of my answer recorded. One of the there's problems about PTSD, and I think some of that cumulative effects, and I hear what Ms. Toms is saying, that may be limited another way, because if there's a cumulative effect, there could be a cumulative effect in one department, this director Lang kind of alluded to. So one member in Malaspina could have cumulative effects beyond a level. So I think finding ways to monitor that and limit that is sort of a bit separate from the two membership in the fire departments. And as Director Elliott said, is that really putting a barrier in that's needed or not? The middle ground could be, this is kind of an all or nothing here, either allowing it or not allowing it. One of the alternatives could be to say that if a member wants to be, if a person wants to be a volunteer in more than one fire department, they have to pick a primary one, because there's administrative, beyond the PTSD, and I think that's just part of it. There are issues around allocation, mutual aid. How can you do mutual aid? I mean, mutual aid is going to happen between departments that are near each other. And how does that work when you're part of both? When you have to make a call, which fire department do you respond to if you're in both? I mean, there's challenges like that. Who do you respond to? Fire departments are hierarchical structures, and when you're answering to two fire chiefs, which one wins? Because it's a top down, and the fire chief's supposed to say you're going to do this, and you say, well, I'm actually the other fire chief's telling me, so I'm going to not do that. Well, that's not really working very well. But a way around it, one option is you can't have that. Another option could be that every member, if they're in more than one, they have to pick a primary one. And it's clear that if they're in a second fire department, that's a secondary one, and all a lot of the issues that are identified, administrative issues and cost issues, could be dealt with, because then it's clear that if there's a choice, it's the primary one. If there's a conflict, practices on the same day, it's a primary one. And then, the other fire chief might say, well, you're not really able to fulfill the duties. So if this goes forward, if this passed, I would at least like to get a report in a year to review it and be able to see how often does this happen. It could also be a minor issue. I mean, we may be talking about one or two people, so maybe it's a lot of discussion over nothing. If it doesn't go forward, then what I would be interested is to see if the board is interested in somehow referring this back to staff to look at a policy that could talk about what would be the conditions for dual membership in departments, to figure out and articulate those lines and try to find a bit more of a nuanced solution that would resolve some of the issues that we're talking about.
Thank you, Director Paul. Director Goat, and then I'll put myself on the speaker.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the director's input here, because it certainly influencing the way I think about what we're dealing with here. And I think the real question that is emerging for me is, if there is a problem here that needs to be solved. There's a proposed solution here, but does it address the problem that needs to be solved? And I don't think from the report that there's a huge number of people that are in multiple fire departments. I think there are a small number of people that are in more than one fire department. I haven't heard any information about there being any problem with the response, or somehow one fire department doesn't get an appropriate response because there are other firefighters that are not available for simultaneously happening response to another fire. I haven't heard of that. I don't see anything at this point. And I just think this is premature to go with this. I don't see enough information there that it's a problem, and a problem that needs to be solved now.
Thank you, Director Goat, and I'll put my 2 cents worth in here. I think that we need to have more information before we can truly make a decision. I would like to know what is the process for developing, say, a cost share situation with a member who is going through a PTSD and the required treatment. How can we cost share that with the other department? I see the benefit to the local area taxpayers in trying to resolve that. So that is something that does need to be addressed. I also kind of have the thing, some people, or at least one person on this list of people with dual memberships, volunteers for search and rescue. Now, search and rescue get called out silver, and to have the skills to be able to participate at that level. I don't think we want to say, no, you're a firefighter in Malaspina, so you can't be on the search and rescue team. You know, that's not what we want to do. I don't think that is in the best interest of the community. So it would be my thought that we need more information on cost sharing, the cost of treatments on a primary department versus a secondary department, and what really is the benefit to everyone at the end of the day in doing it. So that I would like to see more information. And if someone would like to ask or put a motion forward regarding asking for more information or a staff report, I think that would be appropriate. So we're on to round 2 of discussion now. So Director Elliott, and we do have a motion.
Yep.
Did we move that? Yeah, we do have that.
So we're addressing the motion on the floor now, and if we wanted a subsequent motion after we address this motion on the floor. So I just wanted, so I just wanted to provide additional context to some of the other responses I've heard around the table. Quite right, cumulative effects is the issue, but the intensity of harm also comes from the work conditions that you're living with on a daily basis. When I was an emergency responder, you weren't packing two pagers from different places. You are only packing one at a time, so you're never really in a situation where you're trying to figure out which pager you're going to respond to, because you're only packing one at a time. But firefighting is also a career path, and our region is very isolated, and people may start in a volunteer fire department in one area and use that training ground to ladder up to possibly a potential full-time firefighter within the city. If we're limiting people's ability to move and gain experiences where they're best suited within our region, we are then basically saying we're going to get all of our good firefighting jobs to people from outside of the region. And that is just not okay. The treatment of work injuries through stress injuries is where we need to focus our attention in taking care of people and doing it together and giving access across the region to all firefighters, not restricting people's ability to have a career, feel trained. The most stressful thing is when you don't have enough people packing pagers to respond, and then it doesn't take very long to get pretty stressed out when you don't have enough people trained up to the level they need to be responding on a regular basis. And a fire chief that doesn't have enough people to put on their pager list for any given period of time is going to feel pretty stressed and feel the need to be responding themselves constantly. So there's, limiting the pool and mobility is not the way we solve that problem. When you have shortages of people, you don't limit their ability to move around. It just doesn't make any sense. And even for all of the reasons that people get these injuries, the limiting them isn't going to help. And it may make it worse.
Thank you, Director. Further discussion, Director Gisborne.
Yeah. Now, I had comments on the concern of how this item came before us. Now, speaking directly to the item, I'm completely opposed to it for a variety of reasons. One, as you know, I'm a farmer. If I hire someone to come and work on the farm, I don't then tell them at the end of the day, you're not allowed to go and work for someone else. If these are career firefighters and the pager goes off, they have to respond. But these are not career firefighters. These are volunteer fire departments. If someone's at home and they've got a 2-year-old and the wife's not there and the pager goes off and they say, I'm not going, there's no repercussions to the individual for saying like, hey, I can't make it. If the pager goes and they're able to go, they go. And that's why I really take my hat off to these individuals, because when that pager goes off, they don't have to go. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, when there's a tree down on the lines, they get up and go. And I think putting barriers up is the wrong move. It sends the wrong signal to our friends and neighbors in both Columbia Nation and the city of Powell River. And I know of situations where individuals start out in our volunteer fire departments, they end up becoming career firefighters in the city. And then after a time, they start moving back to our community and they go, hey, I've got these skills. Maybe I'm only in town 6 months of the year. And they then start volunteering at our halls. And that is a valuable skill that, you know, we're getting high-level training from another jurisdiction and now they're coming back to us. And yes, mental health is very important and there's a variety of factors that can affect it, but it doesn't just come from being a first responder. It can happen with just a family situation. It can happen at another job. And, you know, to the point that other directors are saying, this is a solution almost in search of a problem. And I don't see the factual evidence to back up where this is coming from. And that's why before I can support any such thing, I would like to see a third-party service review of the Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department, because that's the only one that I can initiate a service review on, unless the board wishes to do service reviews on all fire departments. Because at this point, I'm very tempted to submit a service review to the provincial government and just get it going, because I'm really frustrated with how this item has come before us. I don't know how much money is being spent. I don't know the impact it's having on the other jurisdictions who have been contacted about this policy. And all of this has happened before the board has given direction on whether or not we even want this report and we move in this direction. I feel very strongly about this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Greg. Good one. Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I don't want to undermine the message that our staff indicated about that cumulative stress, and that they're trying to address that. Like that's proactive. I will say all it takes is one call. So there's cumulative, and there's that one point in time, and we've identified some issues that are relevant to the topic, right? The cost of your gear, the cost of the claim, whatever those issues are. So that's if I saw something come before me that said this is an issue we may need to address, let's address that. But again, I don't see the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed to the recommendation? The recommendation is not carried. There are no items. Sorry, Director Paul.
So I'll like to make a follow-up. That the committee recommended the board. I'll speak slowly so staff can get it. I'm trying to get the wording, so I'll look to our corporate officer to correct and clarify so we know what we're talking about. That the committee recommend that the board request a staff report regarding options related to issues of membership of QRD volunteer firefighters in more than one fire department at a time. Let me just say that again. Let's make sure, I also want to make sure the wording is clear, so that the committee recommend a staff report regarding options or on options regarding issues related to membership of QRD volunteer firefighters in more than one fire department at a time.
Thank you. Seconded by. Seconded Director Brander. Thank you. Discussion, Director Paul.
I'd just like to, it's just the staff, really what we have here is one option, and the single membership is one option to a problem or set of problems. There's more than one problem. There's the mental health issues, there's cost sharing, there's clarity of administrative, organizational chain of command and all these kinds of things. And I think, staff came up with this proposal, and that's neither here nor there. We would just say we don't support it. But I do think there are issues. I think underlying it, there are problems, and staff have been proactive and identified some problems. And I think we shouldn't just ignore those and move on without doing something. I think really going back to staff and asking for clarity on those, and maybe there's not one solution to solve everything. This might have solved some, but it might have created some other. Here's some solutions for mental health issues. Here's some solutions for costs. Here's some solutions for command. And, I just proposed one idea, but maybe it's not good. But I think staff can think about it and then bring this forward in a way that we might move forward on. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paul. Director Elliott?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the motion. I would be more in support of a motion that was asking for options to support firefighters in the region for mental health. And it may not include an option that has anything to do with single fire department things. And the fact that you're focusing on that particular way of addressing the issue around mental health is problematic for me, and so I wouldn't support this particular motion. But I might support sort of a review of policy options for supporting mental health of first responders throughout the region. And that might come up with solutions that are more supportive of firefighters and not creating barriers. So I'm not in favor of this.
Thank you, Director Joe.
Yeah, I'm listening to everything that's going on here, and we just actually talked about a staff report of ideas about what to do about the problem that was previously identified. I think just asking for slightly different staff report about the same thing is not particular progress. So I'm not going to support this. I think we're tending to ask for too many staff reports right now. I think we would be better off, rather than trying to solve all of the issues in one sitting, to go away, think about what decisions have been made here today, what problems exist, come back to a future meeting with correction to staff about reports and what this board actually wants to hear or report on, and what kind of options we want to talk about, rather than trying to come up with something on the run that might be better than what we have in front of us.
Thanks. So I'll put myself on the speakers list. And I think options, Director Joe, is the absolute key word. And I believe Director Paul, you mentioned options in your recommendation. We'll go back and look at the wording. But I support the recommendation because I think that's exactly what we want is options. Clearly the mental health of our first responders is important. And I like your suggestion of like a universal thing. But right now we're talking about the fire department. And that's important. And also electoral area taxpayers paying for costs that truly belong, or at least need to be spread out amongst the various departments where the person serves. So I think options, and are those the options that you're looking for, Director Paul?
Mental health is one of the issues that's definitely been identified, a big one. That's not the only one.
Question to corporate officer, could we look at the wording again, or have the wording again of the motion on the table?
Thank you, Chair. That the committee recommend to the board that staff bring back a report regarding issues regarding options, sorry, I'm regarding the options relating to issues identified through the proposed single fire department membership policy. That's perfect.
And it would be my understanding that that encompasses both the mental health issue and the cost issue. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Further discussion on the motion on the table. Okay, this one and then Lennox.
I'll let don't just papers. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, neither of you spoke yet, so you can work it out.
You first. On paper says. Yeah, I'm not entirely sold on this motion because it seems to be more oriented towards the impacts of mental health on being part of multiple departments. And really, my mind is kind of set on a more comprehensive service review to look at the bigger picture and how it affects mental health, how it affects the implementation of our policies, because mental health doesn't just come from being a member of multiple departments. It can come from a variety of services. It can come from
maybe one of our policies isn't, when the rubber hits the road, it might not be meeting our objectives. I know many years ago, the directors would meet directly with their fire chiefs and their senior officers. That was clawed back to be that the directors would then meet only with the fire chiefs. And now the chain of command is the volunteer firefighters communicate with their fire chiefs, the fire chiefs communicate with the manager of emergency services, the manager of emergency services communicates with the CAO, and then the CAO is our one employee that reports directly to the board. So that has been the situation since I've been on this board, and I find it very frustrating that there's a number of things going on that I don't know what's happening. I hear stories in the community and I think it's a game of telephone, and I don't know what is the greater picture. And that's where, in conversation with other regional directors outside of our jurisdictions, it seems like a more comprehensive third-party service review would be the way to go. And then they can come back with recommendations around, hey, this is how we can affect mental health, because that third party would actually have some experience with other departments, with other regional districts, and we might be trying to solve a problem that another jurisdiction has already solved. So I know that's not the motion that we have before us. That's the direction I would like to see us go, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not in support of the motion that is currently before us.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Corporate Officer, thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, I don't know that I think that would be better addressed through a notice of motion because a service review wasn't on today's agenda. So if you're hoping to have that discussion, perhaps providing a notice of motion after this item comes up.
Yes, I could do it through notice of motion. We could also bring it up today, or I can just submit a letter to the provincial government, and that starts it whether the board likes it or not.
Of course, yes. Thank you, Director Gisborne. Director Lawrence.
Thanks, Chair. I think just my instincts right now, the report before us that you weren't asking for is about mental health. We've got a bunch of work underway currently with our fire departments that is good work, and we need to keep going that way. I'm not in support of the recommendation on the floor. I'm more favoring Director Doubt's approach. We've got a whole bunch of things that have been identified today. I think we should take a moment, take them away, and then come with motions that give people time to consider them fulsomely and make a good decision. They're not really related to mental health. They're the effects of a claim, and all that stuff we can work out over time. But the urgency to on the fly get something done where there's no issue. So that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Lawrence. Further discussion. All right, seeing no hands, the motion is to read it one more time, please, both officers.
That the committee recommends to the board that staff bring back a report regarding the options relating to the issues identified through the proposed fire department membership policy.
Okay, that is a recommendation on the table. All in favor? 3. Any opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion is not carried. Director Gisborne.
Notice a motion for the finance committee next week, and I'll read it out and I'll send an email when my internet's working properly. And the motion would be that the committee recommend the board initiate a service review of the Malaspina Volunteer Fire Department, the Northside Volunteer Fire Department, and the Savory Island Volunteer Fire Department, and that the service review be conducted by a third-party independent investigator that will report directly to this board, that the service review include feedback from all volunteer fire department members listed above that have served the department since 2009. This includes current and former employees, that the identities of the individuals giving feedback will remain anonymous, will not be shared with anyone other than the third party, that the service review cover policy changes, workplace culture, and the impacts on mental health, as well as recruitment and retention, and that the service review produce 2 documents, one for in-camera and one for the public.
Thank you. And so that notice of motion has been duly served. There are no items of new business, so we are now on to question period. For those of us joining us, question period, this is your opportunity. If you have a question regarding any matter that we've discussed today that's on our agenda, this is your opportunity to ask it, and that applies to those who are attending virtually as well. So are there any questions of the committee today?
We don't like it's okay.
No hands, all right. Oh, there's one.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Yep.
I wanted to compliment Mr. Gisborne for this one, therefore his comment and the common sense. If there isn't a problem, find out who made the problem, find out how much it costs to make the problem, and address what's already going on. Mr. Lennox said they're already investigating the problems in the fire department and are on a path to address them. If that's the case, why are you creating a new complex problem? And who asked for this would be my question for my taxpayer dollars.
Thank you for the question.
I'd just like to clarify, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
It may not be any person, it may just be a communications issue. It happens in large organizations, so I don't think there's any assumption of malice on any individual person's part, and I don't want to criticize any of our staff, so I just want to.
Point taken, but on the other side, you know, does this really need all this time to be addressed? We need to find out where it came from and the significance of it before we spend half an hour discussing it. That's just my thought.
Thank you very much, Angela, retired firefighter and first responder. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing no hands, that brings us to the end of our agenda. There's no in-camera sessions, so our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you so much for being here.
You
You can join again.
can come back if you want.